Welcome to the Attention Deficit Disorder Expert Podcast Series by Attitude Magazine.
Good afternoon. This is Wayne Callan for Attitude Magazine. We're very happy to have Kirk Martin, founder of CelebrateCalm.com, join us in our weekly series of Attitude webinars. He will be giving us his best tips and strategies for stopping school stress for you and your child. A little background. Kirk has helped more than 300,000 parents and teachers tackle the most challenging behavior issues: defiance, disrespect, bullying, sibling fights, with specific concrete strategies that work in everyday situations. Kirk will do a brief introduction and answer your questions after that. Take it away, Kirk.
Hey, Wayne, thank you for hosting this, and welcome to everybody. Just a couple quick overview points to start this off is, one, thank you for being here, and two overall points. One is this for parents. We need to control our own anxiety, because I know you have kids who are a struggle and they're a challenge at times. Many of you had, maybe the first child that you had would just kind of sailed through childhood, but then you had a child who's a little bit more challenging and strong-willed, maybe struggling in school. So I know it causes you a lot of anxiety, but we'll talk a little bit today about ways to calm our own anxiety down so that we don't create more power struggles. And the second thing I want you to know is your kids are going to be okay. I know it looks like, you're getting calls from school, they have trouble with focus and attention, homework is a big power struggle. Some of your kids wear the same clothes all the time. They eat the same food. They give you power struggles over everything. They may argue with you over the color of the grass. They're going to be okay. So we'll give you tools today, and that's what I'd encourage you to always come back to throughout the school year is what tools can I give my child to help him succeed? Because your kids can be very successful. And today what we want to do is give you some strategies to actually help with that.
Okay, then. I will start with some of the questions that I've seen here on the screen. One common question asked by a number of parents: how do you get kids up and moving in the morning? Okay. So many are frustrated by that and really need some practical strategies.
Okay, really, really common. So we'll start with kind of first thing in the morning. And for some of your kids, it's really tough because they don't sleep well at night. They stay up a little bit too late. Maybe they're just light sleepers, so when they wake up, they're tired. Some of your kids, the problem in the morning is they're anxious about school. They just struggle with friendships, getting on the bus, all the schoolwork. So their first instinct in the morning isn't, yay, I can't wait for another day. And so a couple things that I would try first thing in the morning. One is control your own anxiety. If you come into the bedroom and just say, come on, guys, got to get up, come on, get moving, get moving, get moving, your kids will dive back under the covers because all they feel is your anxiety. So here are a few simple things. One, come into their bedroom, sit on the side of the bed, and wake them up with a compliment. Try that tomorrow morning. You have almost 24 hours to actually come up with a compliment. But wake your kids up tomorrow morning with a word of praise about something a decision that they made lately, some choice that they made that was positive. It's just a nice way to wake them up in the morning. You can try this. Hey, you know what? I really want to hear about your favorite Star Wars movie or whatever their interests are. So if you get up, you get dressed in the next 13 minutes, if you come downstairs fully ready for school, I would love to hear more about X. So draw them into a conversation, lead them to a different place kind of in their brain rather than, come on, we have to get ready to do all your chores. You've got to get ready. You've got to brush your teeth. You've got to pack your bag. You've got to have a good day at school. Instead of all that pressure in the morning, start it off with a conversation. Now, one of my favorite things to do with younger kids especially is to wake them up with a treasure hunt. And here's what it sounds like. Guys, I hid your favorite Lego fire engine in the backyard. Bet you can't find it before breakfast is ready. Kids love treasure hunts. I want to get them outside moving in the morning. Fresh air is really good for kids. It gets them outside and you're inside, so that's a bonus for you. But no, you get them outside. They're running around. They're getting some physical exercise. Your kids with sensory exercise may be crawling on the ground. They might be jumping over things. They may be jumping on the mini trampoline out back. Give them some kind of focus, something to do first thing in the morning, and you get their brains focused on completing a task that they actually want to do. Getting dressed, eating, brushing my teeth, no, that's not tops on my list. But if mom or dad hid something in the backyard, that makes it kind of a game. You get them moving a little bit. Now, here's what's going to happen. They'll get up and they'll get dressed, they'll go look for that thing in the backyard. But they're going to come in and say, hey, Mom, we found it. And see, you get to start the day with praise. Oh, man, you guys are so good at problem solving. You know what? Tomorrow morning, I'm going to have to hide that thing in a different place. And many of your kids will say this, Mom, how about tomorrow if we hide something and you have to find it? Now, I know none of the moms are going to want to do that. And you don't have to do a treasure hunt, but here's where I transition. And I'd say, you know what? I'm not going to do the treasure hunt in the morning, but here's my deal with you. You have to be on the bus, or we have to leave with carpool at 7:25 a.m. If you are ready by 7:13, see, I like very specific time frames with these kids. If you're ready by 7:13, completely done, I promise I will be sitting at the kitchen table or sitting in the living room. I will be completely ready myself, and we will have 12 minutes to do whatever you want to do. If you want to play a game of Uno, we'll do that. If you want to show me one of your favorite YouTube videos that I hate more than anything else in the world, but you seem to love, I'll do that with you. But you have to be completely ready by that time. See, I like giving kids an incentive to get up, and that incentive isn't giving them things. It's my undivided attention first thing in the morning. Now, let me transition here for some of your kids. The reason they struggle in the morning is anxiety. They're nervous about school. Some of your kids, when they get on the school bus, they hear other kids laughing and talking, and they feel left out, or they think other kids are making fun of them. When they get to class, they're not always good at following directions. They may think the teacher doesn't like them. So here's what I would encourage you to do. Ask other people, adults in your child's life, to give your child a very specific job to do every morning. We use this, a little bit of background, we had about 1,500 kids who came into our home over the course of a decade who struggled with these issues. And we use this with at least 1,000 kids, and it worked. We'd ask the bus driver to say, hey, Jacob, I could really use your help in the morning. I have to keep track of all the kids that get on and off the bus. Could you sit up front with me and keep track? It gave the child a job to do, something to focus on, rather than wondering, why are the kids in the back laughing? Are they laughing at me? If a teacher gives your child a job, or an assistant principal gives your child a job in the morning, now your child needs to get up in the morning, not because you're bugging him and you're badgering him to get his clothes on, but because he really wants to please that assistant principal, and he knows that his job is important at school. So use a mix of those different strategies, and I think you'll have a little bit more success in the morning.
Oh, that's very good advice. This is sort of related to the first question. Lisa has asked, how can we help ADHD kids to keep a positive attitude about school? I mean, a lot of kids are, halfway through the school year demoralized because they're not meeting the academic challenges. They might have social skill challenges. So how do you motivate kids? It's one thing getting up in the morning, but what about the general subject of motivating them to actually go to school and thrive?
Okay, really good question. That's there's multiple tiers to that. So let's try to hit a couple things. I think as parents, we can begin to set the tone with this. And one of my favorite ideas is this. I would, as a parent, create your own report card for your child. Here's why. Many of our kids go to school, and the truth is they're just not good at doing what the school wants them to do, right? Some of your kids just aren't good at sitting all day. They're not good at listening to things, recalling information for a timed test under pressure. It's just not one of their strengths. But they're amazing when you put them in other situations. How many of your kids, when they're in an adult situation, when they're doing something outside of school or helping someone else, they're amazingly responsible. So many of your kids get this complex because, unfortunately, here's what happens during the school year. We say this to our kids inadvertently. Your success as a child, as a person, depends on how well you do in school. We're going to give you a report card from school, and your whole life as you know it is pretty much based on doing things that are a challenge for you. So the report card at school is important. You need to know how your kids are doing academically and behaviorally in school. We'll get to some tools to help with behavior in a few minutes, but I'd like to create my own report card for my child that says this. Because when report cards come out, here's what happens. Your child comes home and you say, hey, did you get your report card today? And your child says, oh, Mom, listen, there are budget cuts in the county. They're not doing report cards this semester because they don't want to be graded on just things they're not good at doing, and they know parents are going to be disappointed. So I look at the report card, and where I see progress, I say, hey, that's good progress. And where I see deficiencies, instead of just saying, I'm so disappointed, you need to try harder, I say, what tools can I give you to help you succeed in math class? What tools can I help you to help you focus better in class? Wayne, remind me, we'll come back to that after this.
Okay.
But I would also pull out my own report card and say, son, daughter, here's what we value as a family. In order to be successful in life, you need to have these 5 qualities, and it's whatever your family values. I want my kids to be good problem solvers. Oh, man, you're a great critical thinker because you always come up with a different outlook on things. I want kids to have compassion. I want them to be creative and have a great imagination. I want them to be leaders and have initiative. I want kids who see the bigger picture in life. And so write down all of those different qualities. Persistence. You know, the number one quality to be successful in life is pig-headed determination. That's your kids. They have it. They're just not determined to do their chores and homework, but they've got that persistence in there. So I go through those 5 qualities that I really value as a parent, and I have specific things mentioned in there and say, here's my report card. Problem solving? Oh, man, outside of school, you come up with the greatest ideas. You're so persistent. You've got a big heart. You want to help people. And so I begin to balance out how they view themselves, that they're not the sum total of just how they perform in a classroom, but how they perform outside of that classroom. I value things that sometimes a school doesn't value, and quite honestly, they can't value. And so I create a more complete picture of this child. Yeah, sure, you struggle to stay still and pay attention in geography because you're not interested in it. And that makes sense to me. I'll give you some tools to help with that. But your life isn't going to be ruined because you don't know geography. It's just not. But what's really important is you're a great thinker. You love to read. You're curious. You love to learn new things. You've got a big heart toward people. Remember how you took care of Mrs. Johnson's dogs next door when she wasn't feeling well? I love that quality about you. So I'll keep it at that, but it helps you see your child in a different way, because the school year will just get you so down, but you're basically measuring your child against all the things they don't do well. And I want to come alongside and also recognize their gifts, talents, and passions. I'll give you two other ideas here. I would go in and talk to the teacher, and I'd say, I know my son or daughter is going to struggle in these two areas. And I go in and I say, like, let's say focus and attention in class. And I give the teacher tools in order to help my son pay attention better. And I'll throw a couple of them out right here. One of the greatest things we've ever provided, and it's very simple to do, is called a sensory strip. It's double-sided tape or it can be Velcro. On one side, it's got a sticky side. And on the other side, there's some different textures that you get like at an arts and crafts store, or you can just cut up some denim or a rabbit's fur. And you just tape it right on the sensory strip. You take that sensory strip, you tape it underneath your child's desk. So throughout the class period, your child can be rubbing this sensory strip with different textures. It doesn't make any noise. Nobody else can see it because it's taped under the desk. Your child can't take it and whack other kids with it. And science and research show that when kids play with textured objects, it actually improves concentration. Now, if you want to see a sample of it, if you get a chance, go to our website at celebratecalm.com, and there'll be a little tab there I put up. It's called ADHD University. And at the bottom of that page, there's a little video, and we show how to use that sensory strip, and there's some other tools on there too. That's one thing you can do. Getting the teacher to give your child a job in class. Wayne, do you mind if I share this before we get to another question?
No, I'm sure parents would be interested.
Okay, so here's a quick example. Let's say you've got your son, his name is Jacob, and he just struggles in class. If the teacher just looks at him all the time and says, Jacob, you need to pay better attention in my class. You're not going to go out to recess if you don't start to stop squirming in your seat. If that happens, it just sets your child up for failure. It's why I don't like those red, yellow, and green behavior charts that we often use in school, because many of your kids know this. School begins at 8 o'clock. By 8:06, I'm already on red. I'm going to be in trouble. And see, here's a bigger picture thing. We spend so much time on consequences. What can I take away from my child to get him to perform better? Most of your kids have already lost everything they own, so it doesn't matter to them. They don't always need a consequence, but they always need tools. So if I'm this teacher, I'm going to go to Jacob at recess and say, Jacob, I could really use your help. When I teach, my mouth gets really dry. So you and I are going to have a secret signal. After about 15 minutes, when I notice you're kind of squirming in your seat and talking to your classmate, I'm going to look you in the eyes, and I'm going to tug on my earlobe. That's a secret signal that only you and I know. When I do that, here's what I want you to do. You get out of your seat, you come up to my desk, you grab my water bottle. You take it to the back of the room and refill it with water, bring it back up, put it on my desk, and take your seat. You don't get to talk to anybody or distract anybody. In fact, you're going to be invisible man, so no one even notices you. Will you do that for me? And he's going to say, yes, I want to help my teacher. So after 15 minutes of class later that afternoon, I'm noticing that child, he's struggling and squirming a bit. Instead of just getting on him and correcting him in front of everybody, I look him in the eyes and tug on my earlobe. He goes, he refills my water bottle. It only takes 30 seconds to do, but I get to thank him and I get to praise him and write a note home to his parents and say, your son's being helpful in class. And every day we do that. And then next week I say, Jacob, last week you were awesome helping me. This week, I want to teach you self-control and impulse control. So after 15 minutes, I'll look at you in the eyes, but I won't give you the secret signal. I'm going to make you wait an extra 7 minutes, and then I'll tug on my earlobe, because I know that you can sit in my class for 22 minutes. I know you have that self-control. And so I do that. And over time, what happens is this. I use a concrete tool, the water bottle, a specific job. Just refill it. and I use praise, and I get that child to sit and pay attention in my class for 25 minutes at a time. And I've improved his behavior, I've improved his focus, and I did it in a positive way that builds his confidence rather than just tearing it down. So I hope some of that makes sense, and I'll try to add some additional tools as we get to other questions.
Those are excellent tools. I'm sure all parents will want to use one, two, or all of them. A fair number of parents have asked, their child is not doing well in class. How can they best advocate more effectively with teachers?
No,
they want to go away.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, that's a great question. It's very, very difficult. One of my favorite things to do with teachers, even before the school year begins, but you can do it now, is this. Create a story about your child, because for many of you, the truth is, and you'll get the way I'm saying this, your child is just more challenging for the teachers. And sometimes teachers, as good as they are, will begin to see your child as just a problem student. And I want teachers to understand all about my child. So I would create a one-page sheet, okay? Don't go in and take 40 pages of testing into a teacher and ask her to absorb all that. They're just not. So I create a one-pager, and here's what I have at the top. A story about my son, and his name is Dylan. This is what I want you to know about Dylan. He loves race cars. He loves rabbits. He loves the Washington Redskins. What does he love? He loves Star Wars. Here are some good things that I want you to know about my son. He has a huge heart. He loves helping handicapped children. He volunteers at the soup kitchen. I want you to know that my son has a great imagination. So sometimes when he's blurting out, it's because he has this great imagination and he's always thinking of ideas, but he just doesn't have a lot of impulse control yet. I want you to know that my son was adopted, and I want you to know that in the first few years of his life, he didn't have anybody to hold him. So when he hugs the other children a little bit too hard, or when he wants that extra hug from you and he's a little bit needy, it's because he didn't have a mom to hold on to him when he was a little baby. And I want you to know that he struggles with eczema and he has allergies and he takes all these medications. So sometimes he appears to be a little bit sleepy in the morning. It's because he's struggling so much, but he's a fighter and he has a great attitude. And so you create a more balanced picture of your child. Let them know what your child's gifts, talents, and passions are. Because here's kind of a larger point. School measures very specific skills in kids. Many of your kids don't have those skills in abundance the way the school wants them to have it. The school wants your kids to sit still all day, listen, recall information for a time test, and basically recall information that many of your kids just aren't interested in. Most of your kids, all of your kids, they're very bright. They're very interested in other things. So they're smart. They're just smart in different ways. And I want your teachers to know, here's what my kids' gifts, talents, and passions are. Now, at the bottom of the sheet, here's what I would give the teacher. Here are the 3 things my child is going to struggle with throughout the school year. I'll give you another example. We did paying attention in class. So we used the sensory strip. We give him a job during class to get him moving a little bit. If your child is younger, it's circle time. Kids don't have to sit in a circle. He could lay back down on the ground. There's research that shows kids think best oftentimes when they're not looking an adult in the eyes. So let them know, would it be okay if my son lays back on his back and looks up at the ceiling during circle time as long as he's not bothering anyone? Because he really thinks best when he's looking up at the ceiling. And I give her some ideas, social skills. My child is going to struggle with social skills. So, Mr. or Mrs. Teacher, could you do this? Could you pair my child together with another student who shares a common interest? And it may sound like this from the teacher's standpoint. Jacob, I could really use your help. Next week, we're going to be doing a unit on reptiles. I've noticed that you really like to doodle. And by the way, doodling is an excellent way in class for your child to stimulate his brain and stay focused. So if a teacher says he's doodling too much, he needs to stop, say, no, 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 no. That doodling is actually stimulating his brain. And I guarantee you, while he's doodling, he's probably paying attention better than when he's looking you in the eyes. So I want you to, you've got to teach the teachers to know what to look for in your child because they just don't know. So, Jacob, I've noticed you love to doodle and draw, and you've got a gift at that. Could you and Jonathan at recess, could you draw some reptiles on this poster board for me? Because then next week I can use your pictures to help teach the rest of class. And so at recess, instead of your child feeling left out, because some of your kids don't play well with other kids, they're not always athletic, now he's doing a specific job with another student, and he's using one of his gifts. He's good at drawing. He's good at artwork. And so when he sees his poster of that dinosaur or lizard up on the blackboard the next week, he gets to feel a little bit of confidence and pride of like, yeah, I might not be good at sitting still all day, but man, nobody can draw a dinosaur like I can draw it. And the teacher gets to see him in a different way. And hopefully he starts to build a friendship with that other child who likes to draw. Whatever their passions are, pair them up with other kids who share similar passions. It's just an easier way to do that. So I'll close up with this on working with the teacher. I provide that one-page sheet of my child's gifts, but also the struggles, and I use that bottom part where I've said, hey, he's going to struggle with this. Could you give him this tool as a guide? So throughout the year when the teacher says, hey, your son is struggling in my class with X, you can say, yeah, I know. I told you that before. And so are you using these tools that I mentioned? You may mention last year, Mrs. Johnson gave him a special job or gave him a little swivel seat, a little thing he could sit on his seat that allows him to swivel in class without making any noise. Could he use that in your class? Because I think that would really help. And you're developing a partnership. I would let the teacher know what you're doing at home. If your child, you know best how your child learns. So if your child learns best while he's doodling, while he's listening to music, while he's sitting on the floor, then I would let the teacher know that and say, hey, when there's free time in the class to be working on assignments, would it be okay if my son sat on the floor underneath his desk? Because I have a lot of kids who do that. Because I think he'd really complete his assignment more quickly that way. You're giving the teacher tools to help your child be successful, and you're working with them. So hopefully that makes sense.
Very good. A fair number of parents have asked for tips, advice for teenage high school students. For instance, I know you've laid out a lot of strategies, and I'm getting the sense maybe that more of them are for younger kids, but they want to know, for instance, how to develop a morning routine for teens, or getting to school on time, or even giving them a positive attitude about school, because, as you know, teens usually don't want to hear it from the parents, so that's an extra challenge. So for an older child, let's say he's anxious about going to school, how would you handle that? What kind of strategies could you provide?
Okay, excellent, excellent. It's when we do our live workshops, Wayne, across the country, probably the most asked question besides defiance and meltdowns is, how do you motivate an older child who just doesn't seem to be able to be motivated? And your older kids, if I may just step back and help you get inside their hearts and heads, and then we'll go forward with the strategies. Here's what often happens with what I call our kids, because I have a teenage son like this. Many of our kids, here's what happens to them. They feel different. They feel like they don't fit in. They feel like school is rigged against them. They actually feel like life is rigged against them because they're just different. Their brains are made in different ways. They value different things. And so by the time they get to their middle school and high school years, oftentimes they've shut down because internally this is what they're saying. I can't be like everybody else. I can't be like my brother and my sister or those kids at school who just have everything together. Stop trying to fit me in that box because I can't do it and I keep feeling like a failure. Some kids, not all, but some teenage kids just get absorbed into video games because it's a safe place for them, because they feel like failures. The truth is many of our teenagers feel like no matter what they do, they can never succeed. And if you or I felt like that as an adult, we would shut down too, or we'd probably go and drink a lot. So because you can't deal with that. So with a teenager, here's what I want to do. I would make a list of your teenagers' gifts, talents, and passions. What are they good at doing? What do they excel at doing? What brings them satisfaction? Who, and this is a really big one, who do your teenage or older kids relate well to? Some of you have kids who are amazing with younger kids. Some of you have kids, they have asynchronous development. So intellectually advanced, emotionally a little bit immature, silly. So they get along great with adults and older kids. They get along great with little kids and animals. And here's what I want to do. Make that list because, see, for the academically motivated kids, they get fed every day. Oh, you're so good at math. Oh, you scored high on this test. Oh, you got a really good score on your SAT. You're going to go to a good college and have a great life. That's what a lot of kids hear. But many of our kids never hear that because academically, they may be very bright but struggle academically. So I need to balance that out. And I need to go to my child and say, here are all the gifts that I see in you. You're an amazing inventor. You're great at piecing things together. You're good at fixing things. You're amazing at working with animals. So I take that list, and here's the big thing. Teenagers, I want to get them jobs or internships or volunteer opportunities working outside the home, using their gifts and passions, accountable to another adult. And here's why. In the course of using those gifts and passions, say, for example, your child's very good with animals, I would go to a local veterinarian and say, my child has a gift with animals. Can you come and volunteer a couple days after school to work at your vet shop? He'll do all your dirty work for you, but could you teach him what it takes to be a vet? Or you get a child who's great at drawing and building things, and you go to an architect and say, I've got this kid, and he struggles a little bit in school, but man, I think he could be an architect one day, but he needs someone to really encourage and shape him. I like getting kids using their gifts because it builds confidence and it also builds a vision for their future. And this is really important. For the academically motivated child, they will be motivated because they do well in school and they're motivated to go to college. That makes sense. But for many of your kids, they're not motivated by that because they think, why would I go to college? I don't even like high school. And they don't have a vision of how they would actually use their talents in the real world. So I get them doing a job out in the community, at school, and I love for kids to be accountable to other adults because, Wayne, you hit the key here. Your teenagers aren't going to listen to their parents. I have a very close relationship with my teenage son, great relationship now, after I almost ruined it when he was little. Mm-hmm. But he still will always listen to another adult more than he'll listen to me because I'm just his dad. Another adult can do two things that you can't do. He can inspire and encourage your kids in ways that you can't, and he can hold them accountable. Let me give a quick example. That child who goes 2 days a week to an architect's office or the veterinarian's office or an animal shelter and volunteers there and works, here's what that architect or vet can say. Jacob, I love having you at my office. You've got a gift. You could be an architect. You could be a vet one day. But here are my parameters. I'll teach you how to do that. But you need an education to do that. So if I hear that you're mouthing off to your parents, if I hear that you're not getting up and going to school, and if you're not keeping a B average or a C average, whatever it is that you value, then You're not working for me 2 afternoons a week. I guarantee you, because your child wants to do that, that will motivate him. Because you can take away his car keys and his video games and everything else, but you've already done that. He doesn't care. But here's what he'll say inside. Mom, Dad, I love working at that architect's office because I've got a gift. He said I can see in 3 dimensions. And now I see I've got a vision. I need to go to college to do this. Don't take away that from me. And so you get to say, hey, once chores are done, I'll drive you to the architect's office. Hey, you keep the B average, do your homework. Yeah, you can work for that vet on the weekends. They will find that very motivating, and they'll be doing something they love, which is really key for your kids. That can get them out of bed in the morning because they're not going to wake up and say, Mom, Dad, I'm so excited for another school day. It's just not going to happen. But they will get up if going to school means they get to do something they love later, play a sport, working with younger kids. If you've got a daughter who's great with younger kids, then there's so many jobs you can have working with little kids, from being a teacher to a child psychologist to owning your own daycare center. Get them doing those things. For an older child in the morning, I'd also use, say, an assistant principal or a teacher at school to say, hey, listen, Jacob, listen, I've got this job I need done, and you're really good with electronics and AV equipment, so every morning I need you to come in here, get my whiteboard all ready for the day. I need you here like 10 minutes early every morning. So your child won't get up for you and your lecture, but if he knows that Mr. Johnson in third period class or the assistant principal needs his help at school, that can be much more motivating. But I'll end with this with teenagers. I know you want a quick fix. I know you want me to give you like one simple Vince Lombardi quote you can give your teenager to motivate him. There isn't one. You have to build his confidence. Get him involved doing what he loves. And I'll close up with this one thing too, because I think this will hit for some of you. If necessary, go and apologize to your teenager. And it may sound like this. Hey, son, daughter, I need to apologize to you. Out of my anxiety and really good intentions, I think I've lectured you too much and I'm on you all the time. I'm on you about school and work and chores and being responsible. Do I lecture you too much? And I guarantee your child's going to be like, yeah, you do. I apologize because out of my own anxiety, I've done that. And I think I've sent the message that I don't trust you to be successful. I think I've sent the message that I want you to be just like your brother or just like your father, just like me. And I apologize. I'm going to step back because I believe you can be successful. And I'll give you all the tools that you need to be successful. But I'm not going to badger you anymore because I think you can do it. And I think you can be wildly successful. And you just need to be you. Don't try to be your brother. Don't try to be those other kids. You have everything inside that you need to be wildly successful in life. And I'm here to support you. And then walk away and let your child begin to own their life a little bit. Know that you believe in them rather than trying to make them be like everybody else. Because honestly, that's just satisfying your own anxiety of being a good parent, of like, oh, he has to get good grades. Believe in your kids. They can do it. They're just not going to pursue the path the way you want them to do it. So hopefully that helps, Wayne, for the order.
Yes, wonderful advice, Kirk. Some very specific questions now I'd like to sort of rattle off because I want to make sure. These are hot button issues for parents. Maria writes, homework has always been torture. A simple page of homework can take forever. He refuses to complete it. I'm not sure what to do to help him. I try rewards and it's still not enough. Can you give any advice on homework and getting it done without a lot of stress?
Okay, Maria, you're not alone. I guarantee there are probably 5 million other parents this afternoon that are going to end up standing over their kids screaming, if you would just focus, you would be done in 45 minutes instead of it taking 3 hours. So remember, tools. It's not so much about rewards or consequences as it is to give him tools. And I'll give you kind of an overview of homework time from a couple different perspectives. Let me give you some tools. Most of the time, I believe it's a brain stimulation issue. And oftentimes we have our kids sit down in a chair and at a table and do their homework. I need you to experiment with some different things. The research and science says that stimulating kids' senses, getting movement, and using rhythm often helps improve attention and retention and helps kids learn better. So I'll throw out some examples, and I want you to experiment with some of these. Let your child sit on an exercise ball, one of those bouncy balls, and just sit and bounce and read and do his homework. He may put his belly on that exercise ball and kind of roll back and forth across the floor with his homework down on the floor. It's okay. The movement's really good. You may, when you're doing vocabulary words or if you're quizzing your child, go outside and quiz him or her while he's jumping on a trampoline, while you're playing catch together, while you're kicking a soccer ball back and forth. That movement is extremely important during that time. Many of you have kids who lay off the sofa upside down, and it irritates you. But they're laying off the sofa upside down for probably two reasons. Probably three. One, because it irritates you, and they like to get a reaction from you, so don't. Second, it causes blood flow to rush to their brains, and that helps them learn. And three, many of your kids have sensory or vestibular needs, and when they're upside down, it actually calms them down. So walk into the living room and say, hey, I bet you can't do your homework upside down, and watch them. They'll do it upside down, and it will irritate you because that's not the way you did your homework. But roll with that. I have kids who do their homework sitting up in a tree. Why? Because it's stimulating, and mom and dad can't hover over them. Remember rhythm. Think about this, especially a child with ADHD or a very busy brain. That brain is very disorganized. There are thoughts and feelings, and everything's kind of flowing through it, kind of like socks and things in a dryer. When you introduce rhythm, music, chewing, a rocking chair, you create rhythm and order inside the brain. Many of your kids have said, Mom, Dad, can I listen to music while I do my homework? And sometimes you'll say no because you think it's distracting. For many of your kids, the opposite is true. See, I do my best work when I'm listening to music. My son does all of his work while he's listening to music or even playing his guitar. Experiment with it. Let them rock in a rocking chair. Sit on that exercise ball. Instead of doing separate, we're going to have a snack and then do homework time, let them chew on a snack while they do homework. You may make homework fun. Put a blanket over the kitchen table. Guess what you have now? A fort. Forts are fun. Homework time isn't, but forts are fun. Hey, bet you can't do your homework down there in the fort. Well, it's dark under there. So give them a flashlight. Flashlights are fun. And many of your kids, see if this isn't true, many of your kids like to do things the hard way. They like it to be a challenge. So sitting under a table using a flashlight to do their homework actually stimulates the brain. And while they're down there, they can eat the mac and cheese and chicken nuggets that fell off their plate from the night before, and now you fed them. So, you know what I'm saying. Couple other quick things for homework time. Do it outside the home. Sometimes you can pick your child up from school and do it while they're on a playground or outside somewhere, at a Panera Bread or a Starbucks. The smell of the coffee and the food, the music in the background, the activity for many of your kids actually helps them focus better. And when you're there, they don't have the distraction of the TV. They don't have distraction of video games. So there are a few things there in tools. Give your child tools to succeed. And I'll give you a couple other things that are really important at homework time. For the parents, control your own anxiety. If you are hovering over your child, and once you get that tone in your voice about needing to do your homework, the child shuts down. Because there's no way, if you work in the corporate world, there's no way that you're going to do your work well if your boss is standing over you in your cubicle watching you type out your report. You would get angry at your boss and you would refuse to work. So be available to your kids during homework time, but do not hover over them. So you can be busy chopping up stuff for dinner. You can be doing your own work, reading a book, but be doing something so you're available to help, but you're not hovering. I would encourage you to put as much as possible in the teacher's court. And I know this is hard, but when we were kids, our parents had us be accountable to our teachers much more than we do these days. And I would put as much as possible in the teacher's court. And I'll mention one other thing that'll be, this is a gray area. Some of you are going to have to go to the school and say this. My child is 7. By the way, my personal opinion is 7-year-olds and 8-year-olds, they shouldn't have homework. They should be out exploring things and playing and reading books they want to read and just learning just by soaking up life. But even for kids who are 9 and 10 and 11 and even older kids, you have the right as a parent to say, Mr. and Mrs. Teacher, we're doing X minutes, X hours of homework a night, then we're done. I am not spending this entire school year fighting, going through tears, going through battles every night just to do what in many cases is busy work. And I may tell the teacher, I want the same thing as you. I want a child who is curious, who is an imaginative, who's a good critical thinker, who's always learning. But homework isn't the only way to do that. So we will do an hour a night. But then the rest of our evening, here's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be outside exercising. We're going to be playing games. We're going to be doing treasure hunts. We're going to play Scrabble because you learn from that. We're going to be reading books. Yeah, they may not be on your reading list because my child's just not interested in those books because he's a little boy and you pick out all books that are for little girls and my son wants to read about cars and planes and things that blow up. But will let you know, we're learning all night long and we're playing. And by the way, you learn a lot by playing. I know this is tough and the teacher may say, well, I'm going to have to mark your child down a grade because he didn't do all of his homework. And you have to make the choice to say, I'm okay with that because our family doesn't value just grades. We value a healthy child, a well-balanced child, a child with enthusiasm, a happy child, a child who's continually exploring things outside of school. School and homework are not the only ways to learn. And our family chooses to laugh at night, to play at night, to have downtime at night. Your kids need downtime to play with their Legos, to color, to build, to invent, to go out in the neighborhood and do things. So the hard part is you're going to have to make that choice. The school isn't going to do it for you. So tough thing to do, but personally as a family, I'm more interested in a child who's curious and learning than I am about just getting homework done. So Wayne, I hope that gives parents some tools. I just end it with saying tools, tools, tools tonight. Ask your child, where do you want to do homework? How do you want to do homework differently? Would you like to do homework laying on the steps upside down? Do you want to do it under the table? How do you want to do your homework in a different way? Listen to your kids. See what is comforting and relaxing to them, and see if you can get homework done while they're doing that. I think you'll have much better success with that, Maria. And just relax and know this. Final thing. Sorry about that, Wayne. Final thing on homework. Your child's success in life is not going to be determined just by how well they do homework. Go meet successful people and say, why are you successful? None of them are going to say, oh, in 3rd grade, I rocked at my homework. So don't allow that to determine how you view your child, and don't allow that to mess up your whole evening every night of the week. Enjoy your kids and learn with them, and they're going to be great. Just relax with some of that. So anyway, I hope that's helpful, Wayne.
Yes, very, very good stuff. Organization, a real source of stress for parents and children. A lot of times it gets in the way of academics. It gets in the way of a lot of things. What tips would you suggest for getting your ADHD child organized?
Oh, Good question. Very, very difficult. I'll try to keep this brief. Simplify your home as much as possible. We had 1,500 kids come through a very small townhome in D.C. over the course of a decade. We had 10 to 15 kids at a time with ADHD, OCD, ODD, Asperger's, all kinds of issues in our home. We learned very, very simple, clean. Less is more. Simplify your lifestyle. Say no to extracurricular things. You don't have to have your kids involved in everything all the time. Slow life down. I know this will sound, but how does that relate to organization? Your kids have very, very busy, kind of cluttered brains. Many of you have brains like that. That's kind of where your kids got it, right? And so the more clutter in your home, the more clutter in your lifestyle, don't have 18 dogs and 15 cats if you can't organize 2 kids, right? So simplifying things. Have some family traditions. We're big into traditions. See, rules are great because rules say, tell a child what not to do, but traditions tell a child what to do. So here are some traditions you can have in your home that help with kind of organizing the mind space. Monday nights, we always eat Mexican food. That way we don't have to worry, what are we going to have? We always know. Tuesday night is technology-free Tuesday. Every Tuesday night, there's no electronics, no electricity on. We're just going to play board games, have downtime. Wednesday nights, it's pajamas and pancakes night. Whatever the traditions you want in your home, there are things that you do every week that are always the same that your kids can count on. It just helps with that. I would teach your kids and model organization in this sense. One of the biggest gifts I gave my son is showing him how to make notes. They can't remember things that well in their brains. It's too busy. I'm 47. I have a hard time. I make notes. Right after this webinar, I have to go to an appointment. I made my lunch today. I'm taking it with me. It is, I can see it from right here. It's sitting by my front door because I know that if I leave it in the refrigerator without a note, I'm going to forget it. So model things. In our home, we leave notes on the floor, on the kitchen counter all the time. It's just a tool. Let me give you a couple tips because I know this is a common one. I have a child, and he does his homework, but he forgets to turn it in. Be creative. There's no reason your child can't scan his homework in to the computer once he does it and then email it to the teacher, because now he gets to tell the teacher, hey, I did my homework. It was done at 4:47 when I emailed it to you. And now he doesn't have to worry about remembering it the next day. He goes in the next morning if he can't scan it and email. He goes in first thing in the morning. Maybe your child takes his homework and he takes it around to the different teachers or puts it in their little cubby mailboxes in the office at school. It's a tool to help a child who just may forget once he gets into class time. So those are a few things that I would do. I'd say overall, model it and show them how to write things down. Show them how to organize things in their daily life, because the truth is when they really value something, they can be really organized and they can remember things. But give them some tools with the organization. And I'll tell you what I'll do too, Wayne, is under that, if they go to celebratecalm.com and they go to that ADHD University tab, what I'll do is I'll put some additional tools, some questions I couldn't get to or other tools for organization. I'll just kind of do a Q&A later today with some other tools that I couldn't get to.
We all know how challenging mornings are. I just wanted you to address, I didn't want you to end the webinar, without addressing the afternoon or evening transition time. For some parents, it's as challenging as the morning, if not more so. So do you have any tips to smooth that transition time when kids are exhausted and from school, perhaps even a little demoralized, and homework is the last thing they want to do? So is there anything you can recommend on that front?
Yeah, I'd say have a family tradition. What's your tradition after school or when you pick your child up from daycare and get home? Something that's not jumping right into all the activities of the night. We've got to go to Taekwondo, got to get dressed, or get dinner. spend even 3 to 5 minutes sitting on the floor, sitting out on your deck, on the front steps of your house. One thing I like to ask kids after school or in the evening is, I don't always ask them about school, but I'll tell them something that happened to me during my day and say, hey, if you were in that situation like I was today, how would you handle it? Because sometimes here's what our kids hear after school. Hey, how was school today? Did you make any new friends? Was your behavior good? Did you get your work done? How did you do on that test? Do you have any homework? And they're immediately hit with all of this pressure. It's like coming home from your job and you open the front door. Oh, there's your boss. And he says, hey, Wayne, you didn't get all your work done today at the office. Why don't we go sit at the table and I'll stand over you for an hour while you work some more? You wouldn't put up with that. Right. So have a tradition, physical exercise. And I know you've heard this a million times, but if you have a child that struggles in any of these areas, you must change your lifestyle in a way that you get a walk in at least or some vigorous exercise outside. The hard part is when we were kids, it was part of our DNA. We just threw our book bag on the floor and we went outside and we played hard. Your kids don't always do that. So you may have to get out there and play with them. When we had those kids at our house, they loved treasure hunts of any kind. I would just throw pennies and nickels out in the grass, and they loved it. We'd play hide and seek. They loved that intense involvement with an adult. But just saying, hey, run around outside, they don't even know how anymore. So get outside at the beginning of the evening, that transition time before you jump into homework, and then use those different tools for homework time. But see if you can kind of get that edge off before you jump into the busyness of your life.
Very good advice again. I think we'll have to end it there. We're approaching 1 o'clock. So your advice has been really helpful to people. I urge everyone to check out Kirk's site, celebratecalm.com. Thank you so much, Kirk.
Thank you, and thank you for all you guys do to help families. Really appreciate it.
Have a great day, everyone. Goodbye.
For more Attitude Podcast and information on living well with attention deficit, visit attitudemag.com. That's ADDITUDEMAG.com.